Hello and welcome to this episode of MACRA podcast. Today's topic is a very interesting and historical festival that we have been celebrating for years in Macau. It is held on the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, which is also a very special day in Macau's history. Coincidentally, it is also a day that Christians celebrate in honor of Saint John. The name of this festival is Arraial de São João, or translated in English, the St. John's Festival. This episode is hosted by Mariana Pereira and myself, Ubaldino Couto. We are both researchers in this field of study and hope to share some insights we have on this event. So hi everyone, I am Ubaldino Couto and with me here is Mariana from a very prestigious university in the UK. And our topic today is, as you can see here on the screen, Arraial de São João. Mariana, what is Arraial de São João? Please answer
Hello,
us.
everyone. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. This is quite an exciting topic. Arraial de São João, which is also known as the Feast of Saint John, is without a doubt one of the oldest historical traditions and celebrations of Macau. It is held every year on the 24th of June and is one of the cultural elements in the inventory of intangible cultural heritage of Macau.
But why is it on the 24th of June?
Basically, I think that connects a little bit with, what is Dia de Macau, which is what the event was in the past. And I think we can go a little bit into the historical timeline here, but let me try to explain how is it celebrated now, because just to give a context, right, to the people in the audience who want to know more about the festivity. So
I just want to also disrupt you a bit on your flow.
Sure.
Our background is really nice. And we see this at Arraial São João, right?
Yes,
so can you give us a very brief overview of what these plants, what are they? And how is it connected with São João? And please continue your conversation.
No, absolutely. I mean, the entire festivity has a very fresh air, right? It's very colorful. I mean, it is a very positive commemoration. And it's, of course, associated with Saint John, who we see portrayed in this really, really interesting banner. It also has, so Saint John, it's a celebration that you will find in a lot of places around the world. And in the particular case of Macau, Saint John is the patron saint. And you can see a type of a religious affinity, right? There's some elements, but basically it is a very positive community gathering. We have since 2007, the celebration has been taking place in this part of Macau, St. Lazarus. I guess it could be in other places as well, but most importantly, it's known as an arraial. So you can see in the title of the banner, an arraial is a type of outdoor celebration. And it's in this case organized by, several associations that are connected to the Macanese and Portuguese communities in Macau. And you can see their stalls, so you have these different stalls. Definitely the most symbolic monument of the celebration is the Mass. So we ask for Saint John as the patron saint of Macau to bless the city. And then the entire festival revolves around music, there are performances, there's folk dancing, there's gastronomy, both Macanese and Portuguese. And there are also, for instance, books. You take the opportunity to showcase what the community has to offer. There are some handicrafts, there are products from the creative industry sector. This is a really important space for the community to say, we are here, this is what we have, and this is our culture. So this is what we're seeing in the photo.
Mariana, my background is on researching cultural festivals, but what I'm hearing is more like a festival, a fiesta, more than a religious celebration. So is it really religious or not religious, or nothing to do with it, or just some sort of like connected to St. John's, but then it's more like a party? So can you comment a bit on that?
No, absolutely. I mean, I would say for the majority of people who go, it will be a gathering, right? It's a party. It's a wonderful occasion to see people, to celebrate, to enjoy summer. But it has this historical connection, and that historical connection currently is in the shape of the Mass, which is a very short, it's 3 minutes, it's a reference to what the event used to be in the past. And historically, of course, the celebration was quite different. So from the 18th to the 20th century, and then once I start getting into more the concrete history, the celebration involved a huge procession that would actually cross half of Macau. It involved government representatives, you had military officials, students, from various religious schools. So the religious element was the most important in the past. And the statue of St. John would be carried across the city, accompanied by a marching band. It was quite a boisterous festivity. We know, for example, that by mid-19th century, the festivity would go all the way to the Senate building, so Leal Senado, and there will be cannon shots being fired from the Mount Fortress in honor of the saint. So it was quite an event. There was also a homily in the cathedral. So yes, the religious event is historical at the moment. Perhaps it's not as relevant as it once was. So the reference to it is really interesting that it's still there. We also know that, the 24th of June was the only official municipal holiday of the city of Macau. It wasn't celebrated as a municipal holiday in Taipa and in Coloane. It was not. It was just the city of Macau.
Very
and we
interesting.
know, yeah, it's very interesting. We know from references that these celebrations have been taking place almost continuously since the 17th century.
Wow.
This is quite important because last year, in theory, we commemorated 400 years of these celebrations.
Centuries of celebration.
Yes. And, of course, the question is not, was it continuously celebrated? That's not as important as thinking, the relevance it still has for the community. And we know, for instance, in the past, it appears that it became a municipal holiday only in 1911. So, it's quite of a recent thing, but it has continuously been celebrated. And we have some very interesting historical references of how much the government used to spend. For instance, in 1903, the government spent 100 patakas in the celebration.
I can host quite a lot of
money at the time.
I can host quite a lot of these festivals now with that budget.
Yes.
$100.
So,
hey,
yeah,
I'm trying to piece together all these clues you've been dropping, like this cannonballs at St. João, and then this photograph, very historical photograph that you provided. So what is this, and how is it connected to St. João? And you talked about Dia de Macau, right? So how do we piece all of these together?
No, that's a very important point. So this photo that we're seeing now, it's actually an imagined Macau that was drawn by the Dutch. It's quite a curious, quite a curious event. So the basic storyline of, the 24th of June, it revolves around an attack that was planned by the Dutch, by a Dutch armada of 13 vessels that attacked Macau, 13 vessels that attacked Macau from the 23rd to the 24th of June, 1622. Why? What was going on? At the time, Macau was a hub of commercial trade. it was much sought after by the Dutch, who actually tried to invade Macau several times. Their aim, of course, was to control the maritime trading routes of the region. And the Dutch understood what was going on. They planned the attack for the summer months because a lot of the businessmen of the city, so the town Macau was very small, but it was mostly controlled in terms of business. Business was the most important thing for the town. And a lot of people during the summer would be away in the Canton Fair. They were in China doing business. So the town had very few people. Not only that, but the fortifications that we currently know, that are a part of the city, they did not exist at the time. And so Macau was completely unprotected. And the Dutch knew about this. And they decided to attack precisely when it had the least population and when its fortifications were not completed yet. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of details we don't know about this. We don't have much archaeological evidence for what I'm going to say. And so there is a lot of discord on, for example, how many men were involved, what actually did happen. We know the relevant point, I believe, is that the Dutch, when they tried to invade Macau, they brought a lot of mercenaries. They were definitely more in number than the local community was. And this is a very mixed local community. We have Portuguese, we have Macanese, we have Chinese businessmen. We have a lot of people in Macau, but they were outnumbered by the Dutch. The Dutch was definitely a bigger force. But the locals knew the terrain better, right? And so I think there are two very important situations that happened. The first one is, as soon as the Dutch arrive, their captain was wounded. So unfortunately, they already have a loss. And the second is the huge role that two Jesuits played in this situation. So these Jesuits were staying at the time at the Jesuit University, the St. Paul University in Macau, and they witnessed this event. And so you can imagine the panic. There were bells being rung, the women and children were running, the soldiers were trying to understand what was going on. And from, there wasn't Mount Fortress, there was an unfinished fortress. And there was the university. And so from this university, the Jesuits understood what was going on. And one Jesuit in particular, Jacob Raw, it is said that, he used his mathematical knowledge to hit the gunpowder barrels that were being carried inland by the Dutch troops, and that caused a huge casualty. And so if you go around to perhaps the next map that I gave you, we can try and understand how this unfolded. So this is a unpublished map. It was created by me and my dad as we were researching what unfolded. Basically, you can see in the blue dots, it's where the ships were docked. So Macau could clearly see the Dutch were planning an attack. And actually, two of those ships tried to distract the people by attacking, that area where you have where is now the Jardim de São Francisco, when you have the big São Francisco fortress. That was right next to the sea. And the Dutch tried to attack there as a tactic of distraction. And then they docked in what was known at the time as the Cacilha Beach, Praia de Cacilhas. And they, it's more or less nowadays when you go when we go to the new terrains, Macau was so small, it would just go around the Guia Hill. That's it. That was the end of Macau. So that's more or less where the Cacilha Beach was. It was the end of the Guia Hill. Macau was very small. So when the Dutch land, their captain is wounded, and they go inland. That was the only thing they knew. So the trajectory that you have there in brown is what we believe was actually the trajectory that the Dutch did. And when the Dutch arrive more or less in between, Mount Fortress and Guia Hill, it's when the cannonball hits them. So there are historical details saying that perhaps the cannonball hit the ships, but we think no, we think it actually hit the Dutch while they were already inland in Macau.
The army moving, right?
Yes, they were trying to move. And that area there where the attack took place is where nowadays, between Tapsiac and Jardim de Vitória. That's where everything unfolded. It was outside the city walls. So
and where,
the Dutch actually, yeah.
And where does Saint João come in? Where does Saint John come in here?
That's the last part of this story. So basically, the Dutch in the end were defeated. So they ran away, they went back, they ran away, and at the day the defeat took place, it was the 24th of June. And it's actually remarkable that the 24th of June was already celebrated as the day of Saint John in Macau.
Right.
So the celebration, the religious celebration already existed in Macau, or else it would not be the day of Saint John. But that is how he became the patron saint of Macau. It's because of this defeat. And that is why every year there will be a thank you celebration for the protection that Saint John provided for Macau. And that is why the Senate provided money, the government and the city gave money so that every year there could be, the celebration as a thank you and as a request for continuous protection. And so far it has worked because Macau has not had any more military conflict since then.
Right? No more invasion.
No.
Yeah.
That was the only military defeat and attack, and everything. It's the victory. It's the only military victory we have.
Yeah, I could actually feel the happiness of winning this. I don't want to use the word war, but this battle or this defeat, is very it's good. It's great. I mean, we feel very happy about it till today because that's the battle we won, and we remained as how history had recorded us. So if I'm not mistaken, this is very important because it sort of brought to us the patron saint of Macau. It is the birth of this particular event here in Macau. And we also have quite a few tangible items, right? Landmarks in Macau commemorating this particular day, right? Shall I show the photos?
Yes, please. I know we do. It's very exciting. After the defeat of the Dutch, we have basically it showed how vulnerable Macau was, right? And the Chinese authorities at the time said, please, let's go ahead, let's finish the fortresses. And that's why we have Mount Fortress.
Right.
And that's why we have the city walls. Mount Fortress, Fortaleza do Monte was built after this attack, because of this attack, to protect Macau. So this is really interesting.
Yeah, but I think the Mount Fortress, not many people know about its length. Wow, now you have stated it, right?
Yeah.
But there are also quite a lot of other references to this particular defeat that we see in Macau. And people are like, why is this street called Estrada de Vitória, Victory Street? Or why is this statue, what victory, And in one of our earlier conversations, right, we were talking about a friend who thought we built this statue for Queen Victoria, right?
Yes.
So this is really, really funny. So I'm sharing this website, Crônicas Macaenses, and in there is a post of this about this battle and the landmarks, and we're just trying to introduce this website as some background reading. And also we'll be using these photos, maybe Mariana, can you give us a walkthrough of all these photos, please?
Yes, yes, yes. So, I mean, definitely the most well-known landmark is the Victory Monument, Monumento da Vitória. And this Victory Monument is a victory against the Dutch.
So
It's
it's
a
not the
stone
Raia,
pillar.
it's not the Queen.
No, it's not the Queen. It is not the Queen. It is a stone pillar that we can see. It was commissioned by the government of Macau to Lisbon. So it was built in Lisbon by actually quite a very famous Portuguese artist, Manuel Maria Bordalo Pinheiro. And then it was sent to Macau, and it was placed where it is in 1864.
Right. I wonder if our audience knows exactly where this is. This is quite close to where it all happened, right? Very close to Tháp Siak.
Absolutely. I mean, some people say it's where the cannonball hit,
Right.
Dutch.
Okay. So if very smart eyes would see that this is a very famous public school in Macau, Perpetual Help College, and the garden is right in front of it, right? And the statue is right in the middle of the garden. Yeah, sorry, please continue. I keep on
No,
stopping
absolutely.
you.
But this is really important. It is the heart of Macau. And you can imagine how it must have felt like, right? To suddenly see this invasion and to celebrate the defeat. Of course, to honor this celebration and this victory, the monument was placed in the heart of Macau, and that's where it currently is.
Right, but
it's very well decorated. It has an inscription explaining, what was it about, so people can go there, they can read it. And it's not far away again from Tháp Siak, where the soldiers would have come. And also, it is very close to a street that references this exact moment, which is Holland Yun.
Okay, Holland Yun, literally yes. The garden of the Holland people, right?
Yes, exactly. So they're all interconnected. It's quite curious, though, that the name in Portuguese does not reference this event, but the Chinese name does.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but we can always talk about this in a future podcast, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And these are not the. Sorry.
Yes, we could. Do you want to show the other photos that we have?
Yes. The other photos are very, very interesting. So this photo brings us right back to history.
Yes.
Same monument?
Yes, so it's the same monument. All the celebrations every year that took place would link the Cathedral of Macau with the procession and the Victory Monument. So what you can see is, the celebrations taking place and unfolding and recalling this event. And it was organized by the military, it was organized by the government. So it was an official celebration. And this is another very interesting photo. You can see it's the same place, how much Macau has changed.
Yes, the school which I talked about is the building here, right? So the school actually replaced the building
Yes, it did. And it was a big square. This was just an empty space. So there was a parade that would connect with what is now Tháp Siak, which was also a very open space. So the celebrations actually were quite visually, they were very big because there was a lot of space.
Right. And a very interesting last two photos, right? That
yes, absolutely.
Mariana would like to share from her archives. Let's have a look. This is very interesting. So brace yourself. Oh no, sorry, I forgot. It's not yet that very interesting photo, but
no, it's still important.
It's still a very important photo. Yeah, please.
It is, and I think when people think about landmarks, they think about very material things. And this was launched last year to commemorate the 400th anniversary, and it's a stamp, right? And these small monuments are also as relevant as the stone monuments. And you can see, actually, you have the St. John, and you have a reference to the monument that we've just spoken about. So that's why.
And also the battleships, right?
Exactly. The historical, defeat. Yes.
Okay. So now
let's go to the surprise.
Yeah, brace yourself for the very surprise photo. Now, what is this and where was this taken?
This is known as the Dutchman. this is one of the most interesting and unknown material records of the defeat of the Dutch. It is said this statue, which here, and you can see in this photo, this is a historical photo of the Guia Hill. It is said this statue was found behind the ruins of St. Paul and brought to the Guia Hill. And it was there for quite some time. And we are not really sure what the origins of the statue is, but it is believed that it could have been carved by the Dutch soldiers who were taken after the defeat of the Dutch. Some of them remained in Macau. It is said that they might have been forced to work, to stay in Macau because they have lost the battle, right? Some people say one of them carved this photo or this statue. We're not sure, but we can more or less place it as a 17th century statue. It's unbelievable. And if you can go to the next photo, we can see a little bit more of its details. This is from the archives of Macau. And you can still see, there's a little bit of paint. There's some remnants in there. What is perhaps the most intriguing part is that this statue is not in Macau. This statue is currently in a museum in Portugal. And I think a lot of people do not know that this is one of the few remnants of the 17th century attack of the Dutch in Macau.
So which museum is it located in case, any of us are visiting Portugal, we can go and say hello to the Dutch guy there.
Yes, please go. It is in the Museu do Oriente, also known as the Orient Museum in Lisbon. And it's at the start of the section dedicated to Macau. This is where the Dutchman currently is.
Right. Okay. Well, this episode of podcast is on Arraial de São João, and obviously we are very near to this date, and we are MACRA, right? So, what is the relevance of Arraial de São João to the Macanese people or to the Macanese culture? I think that's what we are all expecting, apart from the stories that go behind it, right? So how is it connected to the Macanese people, Mariana?
Well, I mean, you can see that this particular event shaped Macau, right? And if we make a comparison to all the celebrations dedicated to St. John around the world, which are several of them, the Macanese celebrations appear to be the only ones that are connected to a military event. And it is
rather than a religious one, right?
Rather than a religious one, yes. Although, of course, then it got perpetuated in history as a religious celebration, but it's actually rooted in a very particular historical moment that crafted what Macau would become. And so not only does it have a unique origin, it is also one of the oldest historical celebrations commemorated in Macau. All Macanese generations have celebrated this, not only in Macau, but also in the diaspora. This is a celebration that unites the community that is dispersed. It's probably one of the few celebrations that everyone commemorates and recalls in their different ways. And so families speak about it. There are different origins to the stories. And this is probably one of the elements that brings everyone together. It's the celebration, absolutely.
Right. So what is the future of this festival going?
What do you reckon? I believe what it's more important, and we were talking a little bit about is it is a festival for the people, by the people.
Yes.
And I think it has been remembered in different ways. We continue to remember it. Here we are talking about it. It is a little bit our responsibility as well, but it is also a part of us. And I think we would not feel okay if we would not remember it. It is such a part of our identity as people of Macau that I really believe it will continue to be referenced. It will shift, it will change. That's what commemorations are all about. But the spirit, the alma is there. And that cannot be taken away. I do not.
And I
believe
think,
it.
you know, in this festival, you know, we purposefully don't want to show, didn't show too many footage of what this festival looks like. I mean, we encourage you, if you're in Macau, to actually go and visit the festival when it is on, or you can go to YouTube and look at the footage and everything. But what I wanted to point out is, you know, in this festival, there are a lot of kids in there, right? And I think that's where the future is going, because the kids are celebrating, and we want the kids to continue with this legacy of celebrating. You know, many people didn't really know how significant this festival is in shaping Macau's history and also our heritage.
No,
right?
absolutely. And I think I would finish exactly with that. You know, we grew up going to these events, and that's why they shape us. So it is so important to involve the families, to bring our children to these events, because they become a part of who they are. It is the legacies we transmit to the future generations, and that sense of belonging that really brings us together. And so absolutely, the future is now, and that's how we will continue with it. Yeah.
That's great. So on that note, that concludes our second episode of MACRA podcast.